Close your eyes and drift back to 1996, to a small office in Tokyo where exhausted programmers stared at computer screens, knowing their game would ship in weeks. One programmer was about to make a secret decision that would create one of gaming's greatest mysteries. This is the true story of Mew, not the myth you've heard, but what actually happened. The common story you've probably heard goes like this. Mew started as a debug tool, a simple testing utility that the developers liked so much they turned it into a real Pokémon. It's a neat story. It's been repeated thousands of times across forums, videos, and articles. There's just one problem. It's not true. The real story of Mew is far more interesting, involves a secret act of rebellion, and centers on a programmer named Shigeki Morimoto, who decided to hide something in the game without telling most of his team. What he did in those final weeks before Pokémon's release would accidentally create a phenomenon that defined an entire generation's gaming experience. Let's start with what we know for certain. On June 8, 1996, Pokémon Red and Green launched in Japan for the Game Boy. The games were the culmination of 6 years of development, driven by Satoshi Tajiri's childhood dream of recreating his insect collecting hobby in video game form. The concept was ambitious. Players would explore a world filled with creatures called Pokémon, catching and training them to become the ultimate Pokémon master. The development process had been brutal. Game Freak, the small studio behind Pokémon, nearly went bankrupt multiple times during production. The Game Boy's technical limitations meant every byte of data had to be carefully managed. The cartridge had roughly 1 megabyte of space, less than a single photo on your phone today. Fitting an entire role-playing game with 150 creatures, each with unique stats, moves, and sprites, into that tiny space required constant optimization and compression. By early 1996, as the game neared completion, the team was in crunch mode. Every day brought new bugs to fix, features to polish, and optimizations to squeeze out more space. The pressure was immense. Nintendo had initially been skeptical about Pokémon's prospects, and Game Freak knew they had one shot to prove their concept could work. It was during this final stretch that programmer Shigeki Morimoto noticed something interesting. Through aggressive optimization and bug fixing, the team had managed to free up a small amount of space in the cartridge, approximately 300 bytes. In today's terms, that's laughably small. But in 1996, working within the Game Boy's constraints, 300 bytes was enough room to fit one more Pokémon. Morimoto had an idea. What if he secretly added one final Pokémon to the game, not as part of the official roster, but as a hidden secret that only he knew about? It would be his personal contribution, a Easter egg buried so deep in the code that most players might never find it. The decision was audacious for several reasons. First, adding content to the game this late in development violated standard protocol. Every change had to be tested and approved to ensure it wouldn't break something else. Second, cartridge space was so precious that adding anything, even 300 bytes, without authorization was risky. Third, and most importantly, Morimoto was acting independently. He wasn't going to tell the directors, the producers, or even most of his fellow programmers. According to later interviews with Morimoto himself, he deliberately kept Mew's inclusion secret from nearly everyone. This wasn't a debug tool that got repurposed. This wasn't a planned feature that the whole team worked on. This was one programmer, in the final weeks before shipping, quietly adding something to the game that he thought would be cool. But why Mew specifically? What made this particular Pokémon worth the risk? The answer lies in the game's mythology, which was being developed alongside the creatures themselves. Early in Pokémon's development, the team had established that certain Pokémon would be legendary, rare, powerful creatures tied to the game world's lore. The three legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, represented ice, electricity, and fire. Mewtwo, a genetically engineered Pokémon, served as a late-game challenge found in the mysterious Cerulean Cave. But the team had also discussed the concept of a first Pokémon, an ancestor from which all others descended. This idea tied into the game's scientific themes of evolution and adaptation. Mewtwo was created by humans attempting to clone this ancient Pokémon, but the original itself had never been implemented in the game. Morimoto decided this mythical ancestor would be his secret addition. He named it Mew, a play on the Japanese word Mew, suggesting something small and cute. The design came from Ken Sugimori, the game's art director, who had sketched various Pokémon concepts that didn't make the final cut. Mew's appearance, a pink, cat-like creature with large eyes and a long tail, was adapted from one of these unused designs. The programming work was delicate. Morimoto had to ensure Mew functioned identically to any other Pokémon in terms of battle mechanics, stat calculations, and type interactions. He gave Mew the Psychic type, making it immune to ghost moves due to a programming quirk in Generation 1. He carefully distributed its base stats, creating a balanced Pokémon with 100 in every category, special in its uniformity. Most crucially, Mew needed the ability to learn every technical machine and hidden machine move in the game. This wasn't because Mew was originally a debug tool, but because its lore as the ancestor of all Pokémon meant it should theoretically be able to use any technique. This versatility made Mew incredibly powerful, but also thematically appropriate. Morimoto assigned Mew the index number 151 in the game's internal data structure. The Pokédex only officially went up to 150, with Mewtwo as the final entry. Mew would exist beyond that official roster, hidden from normal gameplay. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Morimoto didn't create any normal method to encounter Mew in the game. There was no hidden cave where it waited. No special NPC would give it to you after completing certain tasks. Mew simply existed in the code, fully functional, but with no legitimate way to access it during regular gameplay. Why would Morimoto do this? According to his later explanations, the plan was always to use Mew for special promotional events. Nintendo could distribute Mew at tournaments, through special game store promotions, or via the mysterious Mew truck rumors that would eventually circulate. By keeping Mew out of the normal game, it would maintain an aura of exclusivity and mystery. The game shipped in June 1996 with Mew hidden inside. For the first few months, most players had no idea it existed. The official Pokédex listed 150 Pokémon, and most players assumed that was the complete roster. Those who managed to catch all 150 received an in-game diploma from the game's director, seemingly confirming they had completed their collection. But within Game Freak and Nintendo, the secret began spreading. Some team members discovered Mew in the code during post-launch bug testing. The marketing department learned about it and immediately saw potential. If Mew was truly unobtainable through normal gameplay, it could become the ultimate prize for promotional events. Nintendo's first official Mew distribution occurred in April 1996, shortly before the game's public release, at the Koro Koro Comics Subscribers campaign. Players could mail in their game cartridges, and Nintendo would use special equipment to add Mew to their save file. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of players sent in their cartridges, desperate to obtain the mysterious 151st Pokémon. This official acknowledgement of Mew's existence triggered a phenomenon that would define Pokémon's early years. If Mew existed, players reasoned, there must be a way to catch it in the game. Playground rumors exploded. Someone's cousin supposedly found Mew under a truck near the SS Anne. Another player claimed you needed to complete the Pokédex exactly 100 times. Someone else swore Mew appeared if you used strength on a specific boulder exactly 151 times. None of these methods worked, of course, but they created a shared mythology around Mew that transcended the game itself. Schoolyards worldwide became centers of Pokémon intelligence gathering, where kids traded rumors and strategies with the seriousness of Cold War spies. The hunt for Mew became a collective obsession. What nobody realized at the time was that Mew actually was accessible in the game, just not through any intended method. The Game Boy's limited memory and Pokémon's complex battle system created numerous glitches that could be exploited. Skilled players eventually discovered that through careful manipulation of the game's memory, particularly involving the trainer fly glitch, you could force the game to spawn Mew in a wild encounter. The discovery of these glitches transformed Mew from an unobtainable legend to an achievable goal for dedicated players. The methods were complicated, requiring precise sequences of actions and obscure knowledge about the game's internal mechanics, but they worked. Players who successfully executed the glitch found themselves face to face with Mew, the pink psychic cat that had consumed so many hours of speculation and rumor. Interestingly, Game Freak and Nintendo never patched out these glitches. Pokémon Blue, the enhanced version released later in Japan, retained the same vulnerabilities. When Pokémon reached Western audiences in 1998, the glitches came along, seeding a new generation of Mew hunters. The existence of these glitches raises an intriguing question. Did Morimoto know about them? Did he deliberately leave these holes in the code, creating a secret path for determined players to discover? Or were they genuine accidents that happened to provide access to his hidden creation? We may never know for certain, but given Morimoto's willingness to secretly add Mew in the first place, it's not unreasonable to suspect he might have been aware of at least some of these exploits. Whether intentional or accidental, the glitches perfectly complemented Mew's mysterious nature, creating a genuine sense of discovery when players finally encountered it. The cultural impact of Mew's mystery cannot be overstated. In an era before widespread internet access, information spread slowly and unreliably. Players couldn't simply Google how to catch Mew and find a definitive answer. Instead, they had to rely on word of mouth, gaming magazines, and their own experimentation. This created a participatory mystery that engaged players far beyond simply completing the game. Mew also established a template that Pokémon would follow for decades. Nearly every subsequent Pokémon generation has included event-exclusive mythical Pokémon that can only be obtained through special promotions or distributions. Celebi, Jirachi, Deoxys, Manaphy, Darkrai, Shaman, Arceus, Victini, Keldeo, Meletta, Genesect, Diancie, Hoopa, Volcanion, Malgarna, Marshido, Zeraora, Melton, Melmetal, Zerida, the list goes on. All of these Pokémon follow Mew's model of exclusive rarity, maintaining interest in the franchise between main game releases. The design of Mew itself has become iconic within the Pokémon universe. Its cat-like appearance combined with its psychic abilities and genetic significance made it instantly memorable. The contrast between Mew's cute, innocent design and Mewtwo's fierce, aggressive appearance created a fascinating dynamic. Mew represented potential and innocence, while Mewtwo embodied humanity's corruption of that purity. This relationship between Mew and Mewtwo became central to Pokémon's first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, released in Japan in 1998. The film explored themes of identity, creation, and what it means to be artificial versus natural. Mewtwo's existential crisis, being a copy created by humans who viewed him as a tool rather than a living being, resonated with audiences far beyond the typical children's entertainment. The movie's climax featured a battle between Mew and Mewtwo, original versus copy, nature versus science. This confrontation elevated both Pokémon beyond mere game characters into symbols representing deeper philosophical questions. For many fans, this was their first exposure to storytelling that treated them as capable of understanding complex themes. But let's return to the core of our story, Shigeki Morimoto and his secret addition to the game. In later interviews, Morimoto expressed surprise at how Mew became such a phenomenon. He had simply wanted to add something cool, a hidden secret for players to discover. He couldn't have predicted that Mew would become the face of Pokémon's mystery and speculation. Morimoto's willingness to take that risk, to add unauthorized content in the final weeks before shipping, speaks to a certain development culture at Game Freak. This was a small team working on what they hoped would be a successful game, but which easily could have failed. In that environment, individual programmers had more freedom to experiment and add personal touches. This contrasts sharply with modern game development, where every feature is planned, scheduled, and approved through multiple layers of management. The idea of a programmer secretly adding content without authorization would be unthinkable in most contemporary studios. Yet that creative freedom, that willingness to take risks, contributed to Pokémon's unique character. The technical achievement of fitting Mew into 300 bytes also deserves recognition. Modern game patches can be gigabytes in size, adding new characters or features with enormous data requirements. Morimoto managed to create a fully functional Pokémon with stats, moves, type, and all necessary battle code in a space smaller than this paragraph of text. That level of optimization and efficiency is a lost art in an era of abundant storage. It's worth noting what Mew isn't, despite common misconceptions. Mew was not a debug tool that got turned into a Pokémon. Debug tools did exist during Pokémon's development, used by programmers to test battle mechanics and trigger specific scenarios. But these were temporary utilities that were removed before the game shipped. Mew was always intended to be a complete Pokémon, hidden but fully functional. Mew was also not originally planned to be the 151st Pokémon. Early in development, the team intended to include exactly 150 Pokémon, a nice round number that fit the game's cartridge capacity. Mew's addition pushed that count to 151, creating the unusual situation where the official Pokédex and the actual number of Pokémon didn't match. The number 151 itself has become significant in Pokémon lore. It represents completeness plus one, the idea that there's always something more to discover beyond what seems like the end. This philosophy has guided Pokémon's design ever since, with each generation introducing hidden Pokémon, secret areas, and post-game content that rewards thorough exploration. As Pokémon expanded beyond its Game Boy origins, Mew's role evolved. In Pokémon Stadium for the Nintendo 64, Mew appeared as a reward for completing the game's toughest challenges. In Pokémon Ranch for the Wii, players could obtain Mew by depositing enough Pokémon. Pokémon Go, the mobile phenomenon of 2016, made Mew available through a special research questline that required months of dedicated play to complete. Each of these implementations honored Mew's original spirit of exclusivity while adapting to new platforms and player expectations. Mew remained special not through impossible rarity, but through requiring significant effort or participation in special events. The scientific basis for Mew's lore, as the genetic ancestor of all Pokémon, has been explored in various Pokémon media. The games establish that Mew's DNA contains the genetic information of every Pokémon species, explaining its ability to learn any move. This concept, while scientifically simplified, touches on real discussions about common evolutionary ancestors and genetic relationships between species. Mewtwo's creation as a clone of Mew mirrors real-world debates about cloning, genetic engineering, and the ethics of creating life artificially. The Pokémon franchise has never shied away from these themes, using the fantasy of Pokémon to explore genuine scientific and philosophical questions in ways accessible to younger audiences. The discovery of ancient Mew in the mountains of South America, according to Pokémon lore, parallel real paleontological discoveries of new species. The idea that Mew is incredibly rare because it can transform and hide as other Pokémon explains its elusiveness while maintaining the possibility that it still exists in the world. This careful world building transformed Mew from a hidden game character into a fully realized part of the Pokémon universe's mythology. The creature that Shigeki Morimoto secretly programmed in 1996 became woven into the fabric of Pokémon storytelling across games, anime, movies, and trading cards. The Pokémon trading card game further elevated Mew's status. Early Mew cards were tournament prizes and promotional items, maintaining the tradition of exclusivity. The artwork on these cards often depicted Mew in mysterious settings, floating in space, hiding in ancient ruins, or observing the world from a distance. These images reinforce Mew's role as an observer and ancestor, present but rarely seen. Shiny Mew, a blue-tinted variant, exists in the game code but was never officially distributed until recent years. This created yet another layer of rarity, a secret beyond the secret. Players who managed to obtain Shiny Mew through glitches or hacks possessed something that even legitimate Mew owners didn't have. The legacy of Morimoto's decision extends beyond Mew itself. His willingness to add unauthorized content inspired a tradition of Easter eggs and hidden secrets in video games. Developers learned that mysteries and secrets could extend a game's lifespan far beyond its main content, creating communities of players dedicated to uncovering every hidden detail. In 2016, 20 years after Pokémon's original release, Nintendo finally distributed Mew widely to celebrate the anniversary. Players could receive Mew through special codes, breaking the tradition of extreme exclusivity. This decision was controversial among some fans who felt it cheapened Mew's mystique, but it also allowed a new generation to experience owning the legendary Pokémon. The democratization of Mew access reflects changing attitudes in gaming. The artificial scarcity that defined Mew's early years, requiring physical attendance at events or participation in limited distributions, doesn't align well with modern expectations of accessibility. Today's players expect that, with enough effort, any content should be obtainable, even if it's difficult. Yet something was lost in this transition. The shared experience of hunting for Mew, of trading rumors and trying countless methods, created bonds between players that modern game design rarely replicates. When everyone can easily obtain Mew through a simple code, the special feeling of discovery diminishes. This tension between accessibility and exclusivity continues to shape Pokémon's design. Each generation must balance making content available to new players while maintaining enough challenge and rarity to reward dedicated fans. It's a difficult balance, one that Mew's accidental success made necessary. Shigeki Morimoto himself has had a long and successful career at Game Freak, working on every Pokémon generation. His secret edition of Mew didn't get him fired. Instead, it demonstrated the kind of creative thinking and passion that has kept the Pokémon franchise innovative for decades. In later roles, Morimoto has been involved in designing new Pokémon, creating gameplay mechanics, and shaping the direction of the franchise. In interviews, Morimoto has expressed gratitude for how the Pokémon community embraced Mew. He's acknowledged the element of luck involved. His unauthorized addition could have caused serious problems if it had introduced bugs or balance issues, but it worked, becoming one of the most beloved aspects of the franchise's history. The story of Mew reminds us that sometimes the best features of beloved games come from individual passion rather than corporate planning. Mew wasn't focus tested, market researched, or approved by committees. It was one programmer who thought something would be cool and had the technical skill to make it happen. As we look back nearly 30 years later, Mew stands as a symbol of Pokémon's early days, a time when a small team worked on a game they hoped would succeed, never imagining it would become a global phenomenon. The secret that Shigeki Morimoto programmed into those final 300 bytes of cartridge space became a legend that transcended the game itself. The next time you encounter Mew in a Pokémon game, remember, you're not looking at a debug tool that got repurposed, or a planned feature that was always meant to be there. You're seeing the result of one programmer's creative rebellion, a secret addition made in the final weeks before shipping that accidentally created one of gaming's greatest mysteries. That's the real story of Mew, not the myth, but the truth. And somehow, the truth is even better.